everyone to our next episode of Big Data Talks, in which we have conversations with industry experts about the way in which data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are changing the way we live. My name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and I will be your host today. I'm the author of the Enterprise Big Data Framework, which is hosting this series of Big Data Talks. You can always watch back the recording of this discussion on YouTube, the Big Data Framework website, and the podcasting platform on Apple Podcasts. Today, I have the great pleasure to introduce Dr. Esther Loo, the head of organizational design at Malaysia Airlines. And since we are hosting this interview from Kuala Lumpur today, I'm extremely interested in her thoughts about the way in which data is changing aviation and also human capital. Dr. Esther has more than a decade experience in optoelectronics, quality control, failure analysis, and high-volume engineering data analysis, people analytics, and AI. She managed and led national and global architecture projects for governments and multinational companies. She is involved in government-related projects, task force, policies, and guidelines to further expand digital transformation in the country. You can imagine why I'm very happy today to talk to Dr. Esther. Welcome, Dr. Esther.
Hello, good morning, Jan. I'm super excited to be here today. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's really a truly great pleasure to have you on Big Data Talks today. And I really cannot wait to pick your brain on a variety of different topics. There's so many things I would like to discuss with you. But let's start easy. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to become Malaysia Airlines Head of Organizational Design and Effectiveness?
Oh, okay. It's a really interesting journey, Jan. And well, I never thought that I'll end up in, human capital. My background has always been science. I love machine. I love data. And I started my journey after I gained a doctorate in a manufacturing company building transceivers. Then I moved on to a solar company. So I was pretty much entrenched in engineering as the data engineer for those manufacturing company. But what happened next really changed my life. Yeah, I got married and I have a kid, and I decided that it's time for me to focus on my family. So I took a career break. But when I returned, I decided, I had this 360-degree change in mindset. I wanted something else. I wanted to, take my learning journey while I was working in the global manufacturing company and bring it to the government, bring my knowledge to the government and how I can support the nation in talent growth. So I joined Talent Corp. And I started as an industry partnership manager. But as time progressed, and I'm talking a really short time, what happened is my love for data never ends there. So, yeah, it took me a year, but I consolidated the entire rich data source from that government agency and built a really powerful insight of it. And I was later promoted to be the head of IT there. But again, data is like a hobby for me. I love meeting people. And next thing is, it was really strange. The next thing is a friend of mine called me and said, Esther, I need your help. I need someone who understands people and understands technology. I need someone who can help me to get the group human capital up to speed in technology, innovation, and data. And hence, I was, okay, sure, why not? Try something new. So I joined her. And from there, I joined Malaysia Airlines. So it was a really amazing journey, I would say, from machine into people.
It's a very interesting story. And just to share is that we actually have a very similar path in that sense, because I also started out as an industrial engineer, so building factories. That's how I started. And then I kind of made the same transition because I saw a lot of systems that were powering these factories are data-driven completely. And a modern factory today is basically one big IT shop. And that's kind of the same path that we went through. So that's why I think it's a very interesting career path. And it kind of shows that you don't need to start out as a data scientist or data specialist if you're interested in this field, you can always just get there.
I love that. Yeah. And the thing is, Jan, I'm seeing more and more people whose background, different field of study and whatnot, but they ended totally different from where they started from.
Where they are, yeah.
So that's amazing. I call
so,
that.
So one of the things that you mentioned is that you said, well, I did a doctorate, which is always something I find very, very impressive. And I saw, and when I was preparing for this interview today, that you were specialized in photonic technology. And since you spent quite a bit of your life, on that doctorate, I'm always kind of interested in what is that, and can you also explain to the people who have no idea, because I also needed to look it up, what photonic technology is, and why it was particularly so interesting for you.
Well, I was seduced, to be honest, when I graduated. I was seduced by the idea of studying light. I was really fascinated by how light moves. Back then, optoelectronics is new, like fiber optics, data transmission at the speed of light, how the data is moved from one end to the other, the photodetector part. So I decided to jump both feet into the study of photonics technology, and I specialized in photodiodes. Yeah, so my PhD basically, you'll be excited to know it has a lot in relation to data. So my PhD, what I did was I actually used a optimizing algorithm, which is not a general design of a photodiode, and I used the mathematical formula to create an optimized design for photodiode. So I had this love for mathematics, I have this love for modeling, and I have this love for efficiency. So combining that, and I produce a design, photodiode design that is cheaper and faster than normal. And that's where my love for data just go crazy. So I
can imagine that. Wow, that's very impressive. And do you see that this algorithm is still being used?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really,
the concept is always there. I mean, mathematical formulas and statistical modeling can always be applied in whichever context, provided that you know what you're doing.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you today is obviously your love of data. We're just 5 minutes in, and I can already see that you're really, really passionate about this field. I've also been seeing you a lot on other kind of channels. You do a lot of talks about the need for digital transformation, the needs to start changing the way we live, the importance of data in everyday life. What is it that you find so interesting about this?
Well, that's a really good question. Yeah, back when I just started, and I've seen people, really waste their time trying to find a root cause to an issue. Yeah, what they do is they pretty much take a hammer and hit every nail on the board. Yeah, so then I am by nature a lazy person, yeah, and I'm super lazy. And the way I look at it is I don't want to take a hammer and spend hours trying to find where is the issue. I rather have my data tell me that this is the area that I should focus on, and these are the potential issue for that. So hence, being a lazy person, I will use whatever tool I can to get things done. That's where my love for data comes in, because data have never failed me so far.
Well, I think we might already have found the quote. So basically, data and data science is for lazy people. That's maybe also the reason that I got into this field.
Yeah.
That's really great. So one of the questions, that this you've seen some of the previous series. That this show is called Big Data Talks, and the subtitle is always how big data, machine learning, and AI are changing the way we live. One of the questions that I therefore ask everyone who has been featured on the show is that, what is your view on that? How is big data, machine learning, and AI going to change the way we live every single day?
Oh, I love that. And I'm going to spin a little bit of myself in this narration, yeah? Because if anyone Google big data, AI, machine learning, they will have all the cookie cutter answer. And you don't want that, yeah? You want
No.
something unique, right? So to me, big data is like a candy store. A huge candy store, and I'm a little kid going to the candy store. You see all this variety of candies, yeah. Now I can either get overwhelmed with all the candies and have no idea where or what to choose, yeah. So the AI here is the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper came over and she asked, my dear, what do you like? Do you like a lollipop? Do you like things on a stick? Do you like something cold? Do you like something hot? And she tried to learn. And that's where machine learning comes in. She tried to learn what you want. Now, just imagine a kid. There's two types of kids. Yeah, one is who is negative and one who is positive. I'm the positive type. I go in and I try every single candy. I sample every single candy. I don't need an AI or machine learning to tell me. But not all kids are like that. There are some who come in and start crying. Oh, I have no idea what to choose. So this is where AI machine learning makes the selection easier. They come over and comfort the kid. Here's what you should try first. Create a set of guidelines or structure for the person to go through it. It ease their life.
Yeah. That's probably one of the best analogies I've ever heard, and also one which I think is really easy to explain. So I might borrow this from you next time that I'm asked to present on this.
We can use toys next time.
Yeah, next use toys, but candies is also really good. So do you think that big data is helping, and all of the techniques around that it's helping to make people make decisions better and faster? So just like what you mentioned in the candy store, if you don't know what to pick from, what is the best possible way? Is that kind of the essence of what it is?
That's right. The AI can compute faster. They know all the candies in the store. They know the characteristics. They have this super brain. So if you think about a robot with this huge brain on it, storing every single information, and it asks the kid, what do you want, what you like, and everything, and start computing algorithm that says perhaps this kid would like this, and perhaps this kid would probably buy this more. Now, what happens next is it learns about the kid. Yeah, when the kid comes in next time, it prepares a basket of candies for the kid. Here you go. The kid don't have to walk around, and probably will propose that, we have something new. You might want to buy this. And there goes the parents' money.
Yeah, absolutely. So I fully agree with you, because I think it's a great tool to help assist people to make those choices. It's obviously learning about you. One of the I would say criticisms that you hear a lot also in relation to this is, well, if we are kind of pre-suggesting what people can pick from, so to kind of use your analogy of the candy store, that we've already decided for that person there's only like 3 or 5 or 10 different options, then kind of that inhibits people's creativity, or it kind of already guides you on a path on how to think and what kind of decisions to make. What's your view on that more ethical discussion?
That's a really good question, Yan, because I always ask myself, if I over rely on AI, right, would I lose my sense of self, my sense of preference, because a machine dictates what I choose? Now, again, it is based on a personal preference. If you are someone who have a natural curiosity to explore, then the AI suggestion becomes merely a suggestion, which help reinforce your observation of what's happening around the world. But if you are someone who do not wish to be, exploring something else, you are not an adventurer, you are not an explorer, then the AI suggestion becomes your mantra.
Yeah. And this is also because obviously you're involved in human capital for a significant amount. So we're going to talk around that, about that in more detail, especially on how do you create an environment in which people can start to think about what kind of choices do I want to make. What I always try to do myself is kind of force me to also read, for instance, news sources that I don't necessarily agree with, just to get a different perspective. And I think it's really important to always hear and learn from also opinions or voices or choices that are not necessarily your own, to kind of have a bit of a broader shape. So I kind of want to make the jump a little bit, because you are working for the national carrier of Malaysia. I think a company that everyone, especially Malaysia, is very proud on. I fly with them a lot, or especially before and hopefully after this whole pandemic. How is the transformation that data is bringing, how is that affecting a large organization within aviation?
Well, first of all, it's not just data that is affecting the aviation. Aviation industry is always one of the top, or one of the earliest to adopt technology. AI, machine learning, it's fingertips already. But the thing is, the data is really important. We collect a lot of data, not just for the ease of flight for our passenger, but also for their safety. We need to understand the wind condition. We need to understand the engine condition. We need to ensure that everything is in tip-top in order to, ensure that our passenger is safe and were brought to a nice journey. There's this amazing experience when they fly our airlines. So definitely data is being used at every areas, from the marketing side to the engineering side to maintenance side and whatnot, even to the flight.
Good. So when I was in school, I always already learned about the first case studies around big data and aviation. I didn't even know that at the time, but it showed me that aviation is always one of the big data generators. So especially they needed to start figuring out how do you collect large data during flights. I even looked this up before this interview, but did you know that the average commercial aircraft, like a Boeing 737, creates 20 terabytes of engine information alone? So I'm not just talking about passenger data or anything, but just by the engines alone. So I always think that's really amazing. And I see so many opportunities when it comes towards the way that this works in any kind of organization, and all the information that you can get out of that. One of the things that you are mostly responsible for is obviously the human aspect of that. So how do you incorporate that within Malaysian Airlines, this more data-driven approach?
Oh, I love that question, Ayan. It's all about people analytics. Yeah. So definitely the organization focus a lot on data generated by the machine, etc. But ultimately the health, the wellness of our employee is equally important. And every single person, you say engine generate terabytes of information, a single person can generate equally as much. Their entire movement will affect whatever environment they are in. So, of course, we are not going into terabytes of data today because, we don't have that medium to collect data, but we do collect a lot of really quantitative data from our employee. We do this feedback mechanism where employee can share their views. We collected their trends, their leave movement trends, their movement within the organization, etc., their interest, their preference, their profile and everything. And we built a story or persona out of them so that we can understand our people better. And I think that's the most important point here. The people analytics factor is the main objective of that is to understand the organization, understand the people to a personal level. Now, I can't go out and meet everyone, it's COVID, yeah? But I understand them through information. And what my job here is, I try to surface relevant insights from all the volume of 1 and 0 and bring management to attention on some areas to focus.
It sounds like a massive task to me.
It's fun. I swear to God, if you have done engineering data, people analytics is wow. It's amazing, super rich, and a person change. It's like you try to pin the water down. You try to pin the water. It's so fluid. it moves, and that's amazing.
The term you're using is something I haven't heard a lot in the industry before, the term people analytics. And I think that's a very, very interesting term. The whole domain of, managing people typically used to be probably the HR function within a company. And now we're coupling with this with IT. In your opinion, is people analytics, is that an HR domain or is it more of an IT domain?
Well, that's a really another good question. Jan, you're full of good questions. Yeah. So when people ask, are you doing IT or are you doing HR? I will say confidently that I'm doing HR. Why? Because the tool I'm using is technology, but the insights and data, it's all part of my understanding of people. Yeah. So it's like I'm the data science for people. So it's definitely
that's a very good. So it's the data science of people. I think that's a pretty good summary of what it is. So I know, and we've talked about your history and your background. So I know that you are very knowledgeable in this area. But you might also have people who've been through a traditional HR education. I think especially that people analytics is probably not on most HR curricula yet. It should be. So how do you take the rest of a massive organization on that journey? How do you make sure that they get skills that you have and to explain them around what people analytics actually is?
Well, so my God, you like to give difficult questions, yeah? But I'll see, I'm
people like to go a little bit in depth. People are listening to this kind of always say, well, we want to go, beyond the surface. So I'm just trying to pick your brain here.
Yeah, but thank you for that question. That is a really relevant question. First of all, every digital transformation, because you are talking about digital transformation, yeah? So every digital transformation, the rollout plans we do, yeah, we incorporate culture inside it. It's a culture of learning. And then to build that form of culture that circle around the concept of digital transformation, we have to first debunk the myth that analytics is something difficult. Yeah, we have to debunk the myth that it is hard to do analytics. So, and we have to showcase people who done something amazing using data or done something amazing using with the outcome from the data and whatnot. So that's how we roll out our mini digital transformation plan. We create that awareness.
So, and in that awareness creation, do you do that like through online training courses? Do you do it through town halls?
Yes.
What is the best approach to kind of get people in that mode?
Well, people are very different from each other. Some prefer, going to, some who are more energetic would go into Google and YouTube to learn on their own. But a majority of them who are afraid, afraid from the start because they were not interested in it. They felt that they are not good enough for it. Yeah, what we have to do is we create a mass awareness across all. And to do that, with the situation today, we have to do it through online. So we run a town hall, a webinar version. It's not one-time thing, it's multiple time. Then we have to also go into pockets of area, showing them how easy it is to use. So there are quite a number of things we did. But I think the biggest thing that we did before all that, Jan, is that we collect information from our people. We send a survey out and ask them, what is the thing you want to learn most? What is the thing that you lack the most and stuff like that. So those information comes to us and then we start building specific strategy packages to address their concern, to get them upskilled, especially for, people who are eager to learn. And those people who are eager to learn can be your change agents.
Very good. So the surveys collect a lot of data. So without going into too much specifics, because I understand that is specific to the company, but what are kind of like major themes? Is it more around, technical skills? Is it more around soft skills? Is it more around, I want to learn how data is being collected or processed? what are kind of key things that people are looking for?
Well, to be honest, when I look at the information collected, I wasn't surprised because what happened in this organization is happening across the world. People are very much aware about the importance of technology. They are very much aware about the need for data insights or data analytics, business intelligence and whatnot. So those two were flagged out clearly during the survey, the need to understand how to go about it, the need to understand how to utilize the existing tools. So yeah, it wasn't a surprise.
Well, at least that's good. So then you can prepare for it. It's a little bit. So one of the hot topics that you now see with collecting data is how can we also encourage people to use new forms of data collection. So you see initiatives for wearables so that employees can stay healthy. You see initiatives for tracking movement through all kinds of sensors. So that's kind of, I would say, the next phase after the more traditional forms of data collection through surveys. Are you kind of looking at these new technologies already when it comes towards collecting data because you have such a massive workforce? What are key developments you see there?
Yeah, I love wearable technology. I just love it, wearing a watch and I know how many steps I take, what's my oxygen level and whatnot. So, but again, all the sensors that surrounds a person, we have to be very careful about selecting which data to use. Yeah, we don't want to be overwhelmed with data. And I'm going to go back to the analogy, the candy shop. It's different when data is laid out in a shelf versus a bunch of candy pouring on your head. You get buried under all those numbers. So data has to be done. I would say take information on what you have today, analyze it, and all those additional variable technology data can come in later. So. At the moment, I'm still looking into data that we have today and have not even reached out to them. But I know there are some organizations who offer the wearable technology where people like us, HR, can track the wellness and well-being of our employee.
Yeah. So you just mentioned, I'm still looking myself at the data. I'm very interested to learn a little bit more around how you do that in practice. So have you kind of built dashboards or do you still go into the data sets yourself to create them by yourself, or how do you do that?
Well, when you have Drive, and the thing here is, as much as everyone is being aware about data, the need for data, etc., there are several organizations out there who are making data collection, data analytics really easy. So, and I like that. It used to be I have to write codes of SQL to extract data, or I have to do all the linkages to data. But today it's all a matter of plug and play. Yeah. So I would say that I'm spending more time on the analytics function. The data curation and compilation is all it's all there. It's a matter of plug and play. But the understanding of the people inside, that's where I spend most of my time.
Yeah. And because that's also one of the main topics, or I would say difficulties that I'm always hearing is, we have all of that insights, and it's easy indeed, as you say nowadays, with all of the great tools and all of the fantastic technology that's out there, and you don't even have to have an IT background to kind of make that nowadays. It's becoming more plug and play, which I think is excellent. But then one of the main challenges is always how will we then analyze that insights, because the machines and all the beautiful technology can do a lot of good, but ultimately it's still about deciding what kind of decisions we should make based on that insight. How do you go through that process with your teams and the people at Malaysia Airlines?
So it's absolutely important to verify your information. And you are right. The hardest part is not building the data set. That's the easiest. The hardest part is to look at all the numbers and come up with conclusion, hypothesis out of it. Yeah. So, but to do that in any context or in any scenario, you have to go back to the ground. You have to verify it. You have to interview the people, get create that rapport. You have to talk to subject matter expert to understand whether the data that you churn out, the hypothesis that you made, is accurate. Or are there something that I'm missing? Now, I can give you an example. When I pull out the learning history track, the survey from the organization, I found this person, This person appears to have high learning aptitude. He's blue collar, and he seems like he's really excited about learning from the survey, etc. But when I look at his learning history, there were none. He did not register for any. So instead of saying, "Oh, this person is just, a pretentious person who say but didn't do," I went down and checked. And I found out that he's indeed a great learner. But because he's a low level and going through Teams Live, he went through a phone is really difficult. So he actually went to his friend's place who have a laptop, and he just sat there and learned with notes and everything. So it's not, data doesn't tell everything. So
that's a very good point. And I think that is something that we're sometimes forgetting a little bit in this world. I've read also in the newspapers in the last few weeks that there's also major governments that make decisions based on data, but they're kind of forgetting the human aspect. So when they actually started to take actions, it appeared that the situation was completely different than how they imagined at the first place. So I think that is something that we do need to start taking into account in the future, because there's so much potential harm that also can be done if you just make decisions only on data without taking the human component into place.
Because we're talking about people analytics. When it comes to machine, it's really straightforward. You run a process control. It went out of control. You know what happened. But when it comes to people, there are so many aspects that we are not aware about. And this is where interaction, rapport, understanding becomes really important when it comes to people analytics.
Absolutely. So what you say is that a lot of different aspects around people, it's difficult to simulate. I think people have been trying to do that. You can get entire PhDs in that area. Well, one of the areas that always interests me personally a lot is the whole notion of sentiment analysis. So are machines able to kind of mimic emotion or detect emotion? Do you think that is something that we're going to see more of in the future?
Well, I tried sentiment analysis a few days ago. It was just a few days ago.
Oh, and really?
The statement I put is, I hate, and it's all in capital, I hate this program. Then underneath I put, ha ha ha, I'm kidding. All right?
Okay.
So if the machine is smart enough, I hate this program, negative sentiment. Ha ha ha, I'm kidding. This person is obviously a positive person. He is super excited about the program, and he's just kidding, he's teasing, so the sentiment should be positive. But when I run this statement into the program, it came out as negative, because there is no humor in the machine. The machine has no humor, right? And machine is very straightforward. Today's sentiment analysis doesn't have much of the NLP in it. So the statement was seen as such. Now, then the funny part is I took a look at another statement. The statement started positive. Hello, that's positive. And middle, it was all negative. But the end, the person put a emoticon. It's this heart emoticon. System evaluates it as positive. So again, the sentiment analysis is not up there today, but we do need to have people to ensure that the sentiment is right. So you do need people to go through the sentiment, the statement, etc. But that said, it doesn't mean that the sentiment is wrong. I've seen a lot of cases where it aptly pointed out areas, sentiment which is negative in nature, and where we can quickly address it.
And do you think that is then just still a question of maturity of NLP or any of those? Or, and that's always kind of stretching it a little bit more towards the philosophical domain, is in the end a person so complex that we cannot try to, mimic that completely by a machine. What's your view on that?
Well, I felt that technology will evolve to a point that we can mimic, a human's emotion and whatnot. I mean, you have seen Sophia the robot. Yeah, she's
Absolutely.
like the most lifelike robot I've seen with emotion. She can tell jokes and whatnot. So I think that technology is moving towards that. It's moving towards building machine with emotion that is able to calculate reaction from people. So it's a definite yes. And with quantum computing up in the rise, it's going to be quite near in the future, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in the same camp as you. I also think that it's still a matter at the moment of technology and the fact that we would still, this field of research is relatively young and new. So I think it's about getting smarter, getting better algorithms that will also recognize the ha 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 or sarcasm or all kind of jokes or humor, because those are of course what makes us people, and that's probably the most difficult thing to mimic in a machine is true emotion. So I'm in the same on the same side that I think we're going to get there, but it's probably going to take a couple of years, and before we can actually use this in corporate environments, that's even longer. So I think that this is still a little bit more towards the scientific domain, at least at this stage. Good. I also wanted to pick your brain a little bit around, you mentioned that there is quite a bit of notion around how people are going to change because of people analytics. If you were to name, like, let's say, one or two major developments which are practical, so let's say that are going to happen in corporates in the next, let's say, 1 to 3 years, what do you think are going to be major developments that we can learn, or that our listeners can learn from, on what to focus on?
Oh, you mean on using data?
Yeah, correct. Especially within your area of expertise.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I think people capabilities, the potential to grow where they can go even further, people ability to take up multiple tasks, multiple jobs, multiple roles. That's something that, if you're in group human capital, you need to be aware about the people potential. So data can actually help you to understand whether this person can be used for another thing, or can be reprioritized for another thing. But that's the whole concept of people resiliency and agility today. Yeah.
And are you then specifically referring to kind of skills that people have?
Yes,
so to match job roles and skills?
Yes, job role and skill, but even to a point that before they obtain the skill, I've seen cases where people with different background, ended up totally different areas. They did not get the skill yet, but they were interested in it. So they grow towards the skill. Now, with data, you can accelerate that journey. And let me tell you this, people who have interest in that particular, position or job or task are more driven to excel in it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have seen a case where an ICU nurse, I kid you not, an ICU nurse who, decided to go into corporate, and she is one of the best HR strategies I've known so far. Yeah, because she has a different insight. She has a passion for human capital, but it could be from the time when she's an ICU nurse. And it's a matter of understanding the person's interest and bring them to where they want to be. That's the thing. And the second part is learning. So today I'm seeing a lot of technology learning platform that offer AI learning. And if you look at it closely, the top AI learning program actually introduce people to what they're interested in. They come up with a series of program on things they're interested in, which is not in relation to their job. Yeah. So
do you think that's a good thing, or do you think it should be more job focused?
Yes, it should be more interest focused. I felt that In our organization, we have this amazing religious leader. So he gives really profound talk to help our people to understand the situation, to adapt to the situation. But he is probably the best digital designer I have seen so far. Religious leader using Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop to come up with these amazing marketing collaterals I have ever seen. This brings in mind that, you can't actually put a person in a box based on their position anymore. You have to look beyond that.
Yeah, and I think if you apply that to learning as well, there's so many things and so many different topics that you can choose from.
Yes.
Finding what is a good learning path is quite difficult because it's kind of coming back towards your candy store example. What we did in our company is that at a certain moment in time, we made one of those learning platforms available, and they have 10,000 courses, maybe even more. So the question is, and that was really what triggered me also with your discussion, is how can I find a path there that is relevant for job and job development? Because before you've gone through all that courses, you could probably spend the rest of your life and you still wouldn't be able to complete that. So what I found is that in our company, people kind of got overwhelmed. And just like you said, in the candy store, you don't know what to choose. So the algorithm started to suggest different topics, which were nice, but completely unrelated towards a job. So what we eventually ended up doing is kind of develop a skills path so that there is a recommendation from take these courses first because they're in alignment with your job role or something that you can learn for a next job role. So is this the same at Malaysia Airlines? Do you tailor learning journeys and learning programs towards a particular role? Or do you take more of an approach from it's up to you to make your own success and choose your own training programs?
Well,
what's your view?
In our organization, we believe in freedom to learn whatever you want, yeah? But that is in their own time. What we are focusing on is skills and competency that is relevant to our business. So for those targeted skills, and you mentioned one of them, the data skills is really important, and hence we focus our attention on building data acumen within the organization. But let's say we are aware that today there are zillions of content out there and people are swamped. They don't know what to choose. They pretty much, huddle in the ball and start crying. I have no idea what to choose, and AI is giving me all these options, which is equivalent to the entire shop itself. How do I choose? Okay, so in here, this is what we did next. Rather than going into career pathing, really hard set of skills, we built culture. We built the culture of learning from each other. We built the culture of respecting each other's views and opinion within this organization. So rather than fixating on technical skill, we fixate more on people skill. So the growth mindset is there. Now,
I think that is a lesson that a lot of organizations can learn from. Because I always see so much focus on, getting the technical certification skills, which is nice, and I think it's good to have that in your toolbox. But the culture, I fully agree, is absolutely the number one thing that is required. Speaking about education and learning, I also saw that we share another thing, and that is you're also a certified trainer by HRDF. I saw that you are in that domain as well. Do you still teach, or is that something from the past?
Well, I sometimes give lecture to this university, UTP, and as a adjunct lecturer, but I teach them on skill to survive in the corporate world. I taught them things like, what's the next skill, what's the next trend, etc. But yeah, I do, but it's not as frequent as I would have loved.
No, I can imagine. And nowadays, with the whole pandemic, do you then do that in a virtual setting, or is that more?
It's a virtual setting.
Virtual setting. And what I found, because I do a lot of these kind of lectures, and we do a lot of training online as well. One of the things that really amazed me with the pandemic is that it's still possible to do these kinds of conversations, and also to have a real knowledge transfer online. But it's becoming more difficult, because you need to make sure that people stay involved. Then you need to make sure that they don't start to be distracted by all other things like their emails and their WhatsApp messages and anything that can come up with a distraction. What's been your experience in that field? How do you have any tips or tricks from how to keep people engaged?
Well, that's $1 million question, Jan. And I think you're right. I have seen that engagement through virtual and engagement through classroom is like different, totally different, especially if you are giving a technical talk. Yeah. So, but then again, there are many ways to make a class really engaging. First of all, we could get the participant to turn on their video, but there are some who, quoted camera issue as a reason for not turning on their video. So the next option is the instructor themselves. They need to change their mindset that this is a virtual environment. They cannot do it like normal. They cannot make it like a structured classroom where introduction, etc. It has to be engaging. You must have a 360-degree feedback between you and the participant. You have to call out some names to keep them engaged on their toe. You ask them questions. You play some online quizzes on that, put a bit of gamification on it. But ultimately, the content that you share through the virtual session needs to be powerful enough, fresh enough that everyone's eyes is on you, even if their camera is off.
Yeah, so it's more, the responsibility is more shifting towards the instructor, right?
That's
and
right.
I also think by getting a better format, indeed, and kind of enabling this more two-directional form of communication, that is absolutely something that would.
However, I do need to point out this, you can bring the horse to the river, but you cannot force him to drink.
No, that's for sure. And I also think then in some cases, it becomes very difficult to get people engaged. And that's just reality. You also have that in traditional classroom setting.
Yes,
so
that's right.
Ultimately, that's a change you would need to deal with.
That's right. I mean, it's very different between a person who signed up for a class voluntarily versus a person who was forced to sign. Yeah.
Yeah. And was sent by their boss. Absolutely. So I don't know if you've seen some of the previous episodes, but in one of my last talks, the one before this, I had a very, very interesting discussion with Aviation, who is really more on the technical side, because he's the director of big data and AI at Globant. So he's involved with designing all of these solutions. And one of the very interesting discussion points that we entered into is, with all the knowledge that you have now, so with the years of career and your life experience, if you were 18 again, so you're just fresh out of school and you can choose to study or learn still anything you would like, what would be your main ambition? And the reason I'm asking is that Avijit mentioned that he thinks, or his choice would be quantum physics, because he thought that is going to be the next major wave. I would like to ask you the same question. So if you're completely 18 again, you can start your career, you can start study anything you like. What would be your main area of focus? What would you recommend?
Wow. Okay. I have never regretted what I have studied. But if I would say, if given a choice, I would love to take up architecture.
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 That's very interesting. Why that one?
Yeah, I have always been fascinated by the facets of the building, the design aspect of it, how you build things out. And today I think of myself like in data architecture. So I felt that if I have that foundation in architecture, understanding how you reinforce certain area, probably I would be more powerful today. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's always good to kind of still have things. And I think that data architecture, I'm also heavily involved in that design, is also around making design choices that will ultimately lead towards a beautiful structure.
Yes.
It's just a bit of a shame that data architectures are not featured in the center of KL as a beautiful tower. So people cannot really enjoy it. And there's also, I would say, a very limited group of people who really appreciate it. Whereas a beautiful building, I think, is much more recognizable and people understand it. But
I totally agree. It's because it gets me excited when I see relationship tables that were done in such a sophisticated way, you know, with all optimized. I get chills out of it.
Yeah, same here. So I think that kind of confines us towards the nerds domain.
Oh boy, but the cool nerds. That's the cool thing.
Not everyone is going to appreciate a beautifully structured data table, but you know, I think most of, at least, the listeners on this show do appreciate that and are pretty much on the same page. So we're getting slowly towards the end because we're almost out of time. So I have one last question for you. We recently launched a big data ambassador program, which is for people to build a community of experts that advocate for digital transformation, that advocate for the use of data in organizations. And since you are so passionate around data and data-driven approaches, it would be my honor to invite you to be the first ambassador in Malaysia. So I was hoping that you would be willing to accept my invitation.
Absolutely. I mean, I have several WhatsApp groups that talks about data. That absolutely enjoy those sessions, you know, get to meet people of like-minded people who love data as much as we do. Absolutely.
Good. So I'm very happy that you would like to accept that. I will afterwards send you all the information around this program. So Dr. Esther, it's really such a pleasure to talk with someone who is so involved, not just from a corporate point of view, but I would also say from a more passionate around of view. I've in all of the talks I've had so far, I rarely have seen people who are so ingrained and that kind of work with so much joy in the field that they are in. And I think that makes it so easy to talk to you. We've been going completely off topic again, but that's because it's so tremendously easy to talk to you. So want to congratulate you on all of your work and what you've achieved in these years. I think it's a true inspiration, and I'm pretty sure our listeners are going to agree. And I'm pretty sure that you have inspired them to think about data in different ways and to start learning about more different ways in which big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are changing the way we live. Thank you so much for participating today.
Thank you, Jan. It's an honor to be part of your channel.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.